Go to TAPgiles.com to learn dreams, engage my services, and support the channel. I've got this door based off of the Dungeon Crawler kit, and I put together a quick character to work with it. And I just go up to here, and then I can press X, or I can press square. There we go. Or press square again to close it. And I can run around here and open it the other way. And I'm going to show how that particular part works, the opening from either way and having sound effects and stuff work as well. So first we want to animate this door. So I'm going to use a timeline, and this is going to cater for when it's in the middle, it will be closed. When it's on one end, it will be open like that, and when it's at the other end, it will be open like that. And then we'll control this timeline in various ways. So let's have a keyframe in the middle first. Scope in here, and I'll use the grid snap to just tap L2 on it so it stores the rotation without affecting it. And then I'll have another keyframe rotating it that way all the way, and another keyframe rotating it inward all the way. And I'll snap these to the seconds, so I'm holding L1 while dragging this, and then I can snap it to different columns, and then I'll bring it over here. So using L1 and X there to add the tweens between the keyframes so that now it kind of animates smoothly between them all. The first thing I'm going to do is control this timeline depending on kind of the mode you want it to be in. So to control the actual modes, I'm going to use a selector, and this has many modes going down here, and it starts on mode A. So mode A will be this is closed. We'll say mode B is it's open outward, and mode C is it's open inward. So I'll just change this to 3, and now we've got just those 3 modes. And if we use just a simple switch, for example, we can send in a signal into these different modes to make those active. So if I play time and then turn on that switch, now we're on that mode. And if we had another one and sent a signal into C, now we're in C mode. But we want to control where along this timeline the door is at, so I'm going to do that by using a signal of a percentage between 0 and 1 wired into the bottom of this playhead, like that. So 0 will be on the left, 1 will be on the right, and 0.5 will be in the middle, like that. And if we play time, it just stays there, it doesn't play through the timeline or anything. And we'll generate this percentage using these modes. So when we're on B mode, we want it to be all the way to the left, and then when you go right, we want it to be at the end. So we need to make a number for this percentage based on these. So this one will go down to 0. Yeah, so by default it's just on 0.5, so it's in the middle and it's closed. And then when we're on this open inward, we'll use a keyframe to set it to 0. And then when we're on the open inward, we'll use a keyframe to set it to 1. And we'll wire those in. So now when we're on B mode, it sends a signal out, and that will power it, so it will set it to 0, like that. And that keyframe, that timeline will be at the start. And then when it's on C, it powers this keyframe, sets that to 1, and puts the timeline to the end, so that it opens the door like that. But we will also make it actually animate. So instead of just snapping to 0 and snapping to 1, we want it to transition over time. So we can do that with a signal manipulator. And we can wire that in there and then use the signal manipulator's output. And then in here, it manipulates that signal. Whatever number is coming in, it will manipulate it in some way. So if we have a smoothing of 1 second, then it will take 1 second to go up to a new number and 1 second to go down to a new number. So whenever this changes, it will take 1 second to get there. So now it animates smoothly. And if we add another switch to go closed, then we can close the door. Cool, so we can open it and close it and everything by going to these different modes, and they animate to the next one. What if you wanted it starting open like that? We don't want it to, like from the beginning of the scene loading. We don't really want it to animate open every single time you go to that scene. So ideally, so if this smooth rise and smooth fall was 0, then it would be instant. Like that. What we can do is make it so that it immediately changes right at the start, but then after that it will transition. So if we had a keyframe that sets these to 0, and then we just power it at the start like that, then it starts open, and then we can turn that off, and then when we change it to close and go to different states, then it will animate as normal. But we just want that on to be on right at the start, so we can put it into a timeline, because the timeline will just play at the start unless it's got a wire going into it. So now right at the very start it will go instantly. So if we said always open out, then it will instantly be on the open out mode. Then we can still change it and it will animate properly. Next thing we'd like to add is the sound effects. So we can also put sound effects on this timeline and say the door close will be around here. So that's what it plays when we close. And then when we open and go back closed, or it goes past it, I guess. If we go closed, then it plays it again. And this way, and plays it again. But we don't want it to play by default just when we start the game, because it's not actually closing, it's already closed. So it shouldn't make any noise. So in this, the pitch tab of the tweak menu of a sound gadget, it has this thing called random note drop. So if we set it to 50%, then half the time it won't play, and half the time it will. Oh, yeah, so sometimes it plays, and sometimes it doesn't. And if we put it to 100%, then it will never play, but it will try to play. Even when it tries to play, it won't play the thing, unless we then change it to 0 again, and then it will actually play the sound clip. So if we start this, if we just, in this timeline again, we can just keyframe that random note drop to be 100%. And then at the beginning, if it starts here, then it won't play that sound effect. So it didn't play it, because right in that moment it was a 100% note drop. And then when we come to close it again, then it actually plays. Like that. And we can do the same for this door open as well. So if we just put that on the end, then it'll only play if this gets to the end like that. Or we can make it from here so that when it gets past this point, it'll play it. And we can copy it over here and just adjust it. And this keyframe will set both of those to random note drop 100%. So that if we start open, it won't play it, and then when we close it and then open it again, then it will play it. Like that. And if you want it to, if it was a slightly different sound effect, maybe you want it to only play when you're right at the ends. Like that. Things like that. So that will affect kind of the timing of when it plays. And you might want this to be skinnier. And because this is on once mode, it won't really be affected by that stuff. Yeah, so because it's on once mode, it doesn't actually care like where you've dragged this to. It just has like a maximum length, which is based on the slices. Whichever one is longer, that's the maximum length you can have it for this on the timeline. If it was like a really short one or a really long one or something, you might want to have the sound effect outside of the timeline so that you can have the timeline of trigger it at any point. So now you can say whenever the timeline goes from any of that range, power the close instead. And then I can open it and then close it, and then it triggers from that point. But the note drop thing will still work the same. You may notice these sound effects have 3D on. So on the 3D panning, it has this auto 3D panning thing on. So when it plays, so I'm just going to click on this to make it play. So now it comes out of the right speaker or the right headphone, and then now it's to the left, so it will come out of the left speaker, which is pretty cool. The slightly annoying thing is, like, if these were different sizes and slightly different positions or something, then they'll all sound like they come from slightly different places. So what you can do is make them all, just leave that off and use the speaker name instead. So if it's just empty, this will actually work just fine. So if I go to the gadgets menu and then sound and then speaker, then this by default has that auto 3D panning thing on, and it will just absorb any sound coming from this chip and go through the speaker and use these settings. So then they all come from the same place. So that's quite a useful thing to be able to do. If you've got multiple speakers, so like this would be door, and then you can use up and down on the D-pad or click into it to type in and use that name, and then it would go through a speaker in the chip with that name specifically. So like that. And but if you had one where it was like squeaks and stuff, maybe you want that to be affected differently and you have a different speaker for it, and maybe this one doesn't have that on, you can like turn it down or something, and then you have like hinges squeaking, but for now I'll just say the door close is on this other one, so we'll give that another name, and now we'll use that other name in here, and now that will use that speaker instead. So now I'll open it and I'll close it, and it was really quiet because of that. Try it again. So 100%, if we turn it down, then it's quieter. So it's going through this separate speaker depending on what that setting is on the sound gadget. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something interesting. Go to patreon.com/TAPgiles to learn something new every day.